Don't bother, I'm not singing. I'm talking. And now we come to the greatest moment in my career, a break that meant a complete change in my work, my home, and I might almost say my nationality, although I didn't realize it at the time. I was now turning my face toward America. It was Maurice Grau, that fine man, an impresario, manager of the Metropolitan Opera House in New York at that time, who was my good angel in this. It was owing to his persistence that I finally left Hamburg. Yes, he was my fate in this, and a good fate it was, and is to this day. But I must first speak of two other equally great events, musically, in my life as an artist. I mean London and Covent Garden, one of the most famous opera houses in the world, and Bayreuth, the shrine of Richard Wagner. The American opportunity came in this way. Mr. Grau, like all great impresarios, traveled all over Europe in search of new singers. He had already heard me sing an opera in Hamburg, though I didn't know it at the time. It was Amneris in Aida that he first heard me sing, and then he wanted me right away for New York. He spoke to Pollini, but Pollini said, "Ach no, the Heink, you cannot get that woman." I should say not. Why? She has still a contract with me for 9 years more. Go away. You cannot have her. Pollini appreciated me now, you see. But it seems that when Maurice Grau wanted something, he wanted it very much. So he still had me in mind. Of course, I was singing in concerts, as well as opera, during the Hamburg years. In the summer, I would go with the other singers on concert tours. Pollini, our manager, arranged this, and we went everywhere. Scandinavia, Dresden, Vienna, all over. And most were simply wild about my voice. They wanted me to learn French and to sing there in opera. But as usual, I said, no, I cannot do that. I cannot give the time. I cannot leave my husband and my children. I wouldn't listen to it. It was about this time that Nordica was in Berlin, where I had sung with her Marx in Faust and other parts. And Sembrich too was there. They both began to talk and argue with me about this, learn in French, etc. What is the matter with you, Heink? Why don't you study Italian and French? Get out of that hole. Make a world reputation for yourself. You don't want to stay in Hamburg forever. Go to America. Go to the Metropolitan. And then you will have the world at your feet. But, I said, how can I? I have all my children and husband. I can't leave them. Children and husband. What have they to do with an opera singer? Nordica answered, besides, I have my contract too. I said, nonsense. Nordica said, break your contract. Buy yourself off. It's often done. No, I said, that is not possible. Besides, I haven't the money. You see, I was always prudent. Too prudent sometimes. I said, if I break my contract and go to America, I'm done for in Germany. I cannot sing again in Germany if I break now. Of course, they talked and argued with me, but finally gave it up and said I was hopeless. Well, as I told you, I went to Paris and had a grand success. But after I came back, the idea was still working in me, all that Nordica and Sembrich had said, and I was beginning to realize it myself. Should I learn French and go to the opera? I looked at my children and said, no, but I wanted to do it. And perhaps should have done it anyway, even if Polini, our manager, had not died soon after. But Polini died, and his death was cabled all over the world. This was in 1897. And can you believe it? The very next day, I got a cable from Grau. It said, "Polini dead. You are now free. Will you sign contract for the United States and the Metropolitan Opera House?" Well, you may imagine how I felt. In heaven, at the very thought, and yet still afraid I couldn't do it. Schumann, my husband, was sick at this time. He was very ill. I suppose I should back up and tell you that I finally divorced Heink a few years earlier, in 1893. Then I met Paul Schumann, who worked as an actor at the Dresden Opera House. He was also a scholar as well. He made an unfortunate marriage, and his wife went insane. They had a little baby that Paul cared for by himself. A few months after his wife died, we decided to marry, and I became a stepmother to his son. So between us, we had 5 children. My 4 were still with my parents, but now I sent for them, and we became a happy family. Schumann was a good man and helped me enormously in my work. He made me read all the lines of a song before I learned to sing it, because he wanted me to understand their meaning before dealing with the challenges in singing it. But Paul eventually became ill, and on top of this, he had just had his discharge from the Dresden Theater, where we both worked. On Christmas Eve, they did this mean trick to him. After all those years, they sent his discharge. Of course, this was after Polini died. The successor of Polini, Bakur, did it. And to add to the insult, he sent it in the same kind of envelope they'd send a discharge to a chorus girl. Think of it. And to such an artist as my Schumann. But I didn't give Schumann this discharge letter then. We always worked together, studied and read after our marriage. He would read to me on Sunday afternoons and recite to me from the classics such wonderful things. He then started to work with me on the opera, the acting, the interpretation, and he would say, "I don't like this or that," and tell me why. Explain it all. I can never cease to be grateful to him all my life for the inspiration he gave me always. To this very day, it still comes to me. It lives on in my heart. So began my new married life with Schumann. But as always in the life of any artist, there were rocks ahead. It was not smooth sailing even then, for I soon had to face the bitter knowledge that Schumann was a sick man, very sick indeed. It was a great misery, his illness, a sorrow to us both, and he suffered terribly. Everything suffered, even his acting. This was the beginning of his breakdown, which later on cost him his life. At the beginning, although Schumann was really ill, he still continued to act at the theater. And the following year, my next child, Ferdinand, was born. But as I said, I didn't give Schumann that discharge letter because he was too sick. I didn't want to so spoil his Christmas, and I didn't say anything about the Grau cable either. I kept my secret and sang at the opera, as usual. But I thought, at last has come the moment of a new fortune, a turn in the road. I felt that a door was wide open to me. I didn't know what was on the other side, but still the door was open. I said to myself, I'll make a mistake if I don't do this. It was the same as in Dresden, when I went ahead without saying anything to my father. So again, I acted for myself and by myself alone. I cabled Grau, please send contract to sign. Then it was that the new manager, Bakur, came and said, now that Paulini is dead and I am in charge here, Heink, we will make a new contract, you and I, for the opera. But I looked at him and I said, no, we will not. Of course, he was dumbfounded. Why, Ernestine, what is the matter? Why, what do you mean? Where will you go? He asked. I don't know, I said and shrugged my shoulders. I didn't tell him even then about America, but he saw that I had something on my mind. Up my sleeve, as you say. And he cried out, why, Ernestine, what is the matter with you? Come, tell me what's on your mind. He was simply amazed when I refused to tell him why I wouldn't make a new contract. He shouted, what is it? What is the matter? What has happened? Oh, many things, I said. Why, you don't need to worry now, he replied. We are all anxious to have you stay. We couldn't get along without you, Heink. You know that. I said, yes, maybe. You are very nice and complimentary now, very kind, but I don't know what I will do. Well, he went away then. But the next day, he came again, very smiling, rubbing his hand. I can see him now. And he began patting me on the shoulder. And he said, now, Ernestine, come, be sensible, and make the new contract now. We need you. We must have you. You can have anything you want. Anything. Your salary will be raised. You can have it all your own way. Then I looked at him, hard, straight in the eye, and I squeezed my eyes up like I do to my children sometimes. And when they see that, they run quick, I tell you. So that's what I did to him. Well, he didn't run, but I think perhaps he felt like it. Then I said, now I will tell you why I will not sign the contract. I wouldn't sign it if I had to go and sing in the lowest vaudeville house in Hamburg. Not if I had to sing in the streets or in the circus again, like I did when I was a little girl. No, sir, I'm through. I have slaved for you all. I have been underpaid for years, but it is not for this I refuse your contract, but for the meanness you showed my Schumann, that great artist who slaved for Paulini years and years in this theater. Yes, for that meanness, for sending him, sick as he now is, and on Christmas Eve too, his discharge, and in an envelope you would send a discharge to a chorus girl. That cruel letter. No, you can go to Dunder or somewhere else. And I gave him a good German word for it too. He was simply speechless. He didn't know what to do. Then he began to argue with me. The discharge was a mistake. He would engage Schumann again. Of course, we will engage him again, he said. He is a wonderful actor, a wonderful stage manager too. Yes, we will engage again Schumann, and all will be as before. You will you? I said. Well, I'll tell you now you won't. It's too late, my friend. Schumann doesn't even know yet what has happened to him. I didn't show him your miserable letter. And now, I have the pleasure to tell you, I've already signed a contract with Maurice Grau for the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. Furthermore, I have also signed a contract for the Berlin Royal Opera, 6 months with the Metropolitan, and 6 months in Berlin. Now, what do you think of that? What? He cried. What's this? What are you telling me? America. Impossible. Impossible? I laughed. Is that so? Well, it is so impossible that I can show you the contracts this minute. Also, I may tell you, Herr Director, that the Berlin Opera is nice enough to give me 6 weeks traveling from New York and back every year. So you see how anxious they are to have me. You are not the only one that wants me. I can have a contract now in any city in the world. I went home and told Paul all the news. Thank God! But, he cried, what shall we do with the children? Poor Schumann was as bad as I was about the children. They always came first. You see, George was not born yet. He was not even thought of. But I said, don't trouble about the children. We will manage. We must trust in our fate. For I know it is good fate that is taking me to America. Your mother can come here to live with them. And Mina. She was my maid. She is so faithful. She loves the children. Little Charlotte, too, is growing up. She can help the others. They can all live here. And you and I will go to America alone. So I sent right away a letter to Grau, and I begged him to engage Schumann. I was to have $10,000 and asked him if he would be so good as to engage Schumann as stage director or something and take $3,000 off my pay for him. I explained the whole situation to Grau, and that dear, kind man did what I wanted. And Schumann was engaged for a special stage manager. So everything worked beautifully. I went right on singing, as usual, that summer at the opera in Berlin. I had already sung in London for 2 seasons, but I will tell you of that later on. And then came the hard moment of farewell to the children, to my home, and to my country, and I came to America.